Nick Solaczek is a coach, group facilitator, public speaker, and writer based in Vancouver, BC. He is also the executive officer for the Samurai Brotherhood, a community for conscious men that started out by its founder, Phil Tirtha Misselberger, 24 years ago, with an aim to support and guide men in the modern era. The Samurai Brotherhood has over 400 members across North America and even in Australia. Welcome to Changemakers Without Borders.
Hi, Mai. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
It's good to have you. So, what is the Samurai Brotherhood?
That's a good question. The Samurai Brotherhood, the way that we would describe ourselves is we're a community of conscious men. And practically, we meet weekly in circle. So we've got groups around North America and Australia, as you said, that meet weekly. And why they're meeting? Well, men are looking to often better themselves in certain ways, align with principles of integrity, and maybe even align with their holy grail, so to speak, really creating purpose in their life and developing more meaning for themselves, more enjoyment, and a sense of inward peace, but also outward peace in life. I think that's probably a good way to summarize it.
What's an example of a typical session that you have with men?
So a typical session, men meet in our organization on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights. And the meetings are 3 hours long. And during the summer, when the weather's nice, men will meet outdoor around a fire or in a park. And when it's cold, they'll meet inside. But the point is they're meeting in a circle together, and there's no television, there's no snacks or video games or women present. It's just guys, and they're sitting around talking with each other. Sometimes doing personal check-ins, sometimes doing a share around a particular theme, right, if something is important. We do a number of other exercises and processes, sometimes involving breath work or physical activity, things around embodiment to move energy in the room too, so it doesn't get too stale that guys aren't just sitting for 3 hours staring at each other.
So you do leadership and teamwork based activities as well. What is a specific example of some activity that you guide men through?
Well, there's a number of processes that we might run or activities we might run. Some of them top secret, for members only. But really, some of those things can be a bit of fun, can be competitive games. They can be outdoor activities, shared experiences. A men's group is not just men sitting around speaking about the deepest, most personal matters of their life. It's also breaking bread and going for a hamburger and a beer, or going to play a game in a park, or going on a hike together. It's really about men spending time together and bonding with one another.
And Nick, you're one of the founding members of the Samurai Brotherhood. What got you into this whole realm?
Well, it was a pretty mysterious set of circumstances in terms of how I came to meet the founder, Phil. There is a principle or an idea in spiritual teachings that when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. And I think that was the case for me. I had bought one of Phil's books called Rude Awakening, which is a fantastic book. And I walked by a bookstore in Vancouver called Banyan, and he was giving a talk. It was late at night, it was raining, and he had a new book come out. There was 40 people gathered around. And this is by chance. I didn't know he was going to be there. I didn't know he was giving a talk. And I stumbled into the room. I saw the book propped up that I had at home on the shelf, and I realized that this is that guy. And then I went up to shake his hand to meet him, and he was giving a personal development training that was coming up that fall. And I took it. And from there, I deeply valued his insights and his perspective and his mentorship. And I continued to work with him and take his trainings. And in 2015, he rebooted, so to speak, this iteration of the Samurai Brotherhood, which existed in the 90s and in the 2000s. And I was lucky to be part of the original 6 guys that were meeting in his apartment every week.
What inspired the name Samurai Brotherhood?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that question. Phil has a background in martial arts, and he's extremely well read. on many subjects, but specifically samurai. It's a warrior class. It was a warrior culture, and Phil thought that some of the energy of the warrior archetype would be useful and helpful to guide modern men in maybe a sometimes confusing modern world. So some of the principles of the samurai that he really liked were that they had philosophies, and they had a dedication to martial arts, and they had principles that they lived by. And so some of those have gone to guide and influence and I guess build the culture of the Samurai Brotherhood community that we run.
Now, you mentioned the fact that in your groups you meet without the use of devices. You're not playing video games there. You're there as a very organic type of meeting with other fellows. Do you think that the samurai kind of connotation could bring a sort of the aggressive type of connotation that we stereotypically connect with men?
I haven't seen that necessarily. I think that sometimes there's confusion about our name, that people think that maybe we are a martial arts group, or we're a sword fighting group, or that we do some kind of specific battle practice. There is a part of our organization that does practice martial arts, that does boxing in the park and practices different styles of karate or judo. And so the martial arts piece is a part of our culture, but I wouldn't say that we attract aggressive members necessarily. I think it's a part of every part of the masculine archetype. Can be aggressive, can be direct, can be facing into the fire. And I think it's an important characteristic quality for men to have, but also balanced and tempered, such that they're not run by darker aspects of their mind or themselves, such as being violent and destructive, versus using maybe a sense of intensity to guide themselves forward in life, not harming other people, but maybe to positively affect change in the world.
In this era, there are many different streams of thought, but one of the main ones in mainstream media is with the new feminist movement, could be called as almost man-hating, and that that the place for a young male, especially white, but we're not going to touch race on this show, but we're talking about young males in general, with their being stereotyped as very aggressive. How do you feel men in your group are dealing with these sort of stereotypes? Do you see those types of people? You were just mentioning that you don't get many aggressive people. How do you deal with the perhaps even damaging messages that are coming to young boys and young males in society today?
Well, I want to touch on a couple of things that you said, and one is that, and clarify me if I misunderstood, that a lot of young males are aggressive. There might be a stereotype about that. Is that fair? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that it's stereotypically. This is what many of the message that I see come out from mainstream media.
Okay. So in my experience, in the part of the world that I live in, the West Coast, I actually don't find that to be the experience. I actually find that there certainly are men out there who are violent or destructive in certain ways, disrespectful, might even call them dishonorable, right, in some sense. But a lot of men I find are actually more timid and maybe afraid to speak their mind in certain ways, or don't really feel a sense of passion and fire in their life for certain things. And that there is a kind of sometimes even floating around that you might see, just maybe a passive type of energy. So, we might have different opinions about that, or society might have different opinions about that. It's kind of just the way that I see it. So, the Samurai Brotherhood, we have many members that you might describe as aggressive as men in terms of the way they apply themselves in sport or in their work or to their art. It can be kind of maybe even intense, such a presence some of the guys bring. But there's a difference between that and violence or destructiveness or chaos, right? And that's a different energy entirely. So one of the things that we work on and talk about in our groups is competitiveness between men. One-upping each other and seeing yourself as better than other people. And, men sometimes compete in business, in sport more often, or compete for the attention of women. And so there's a healthy sense of competition, and there's a unhealthy sense, there's a toxic sense of competition sometimes between guys. And we aim to work on that and have men see through some of those patterns and tendencies, really to play a bigger game and not maybe pick battles, waste their energy on certain things.
What are the most prevalent challenges that you're helping men go through?
Well, I think one of the first things is a sense of isolation. And in the time of coronavirus here in 2020, I think that that's more relevant than ever. Men have a tendency to do things on their own. There is what is kind of called a lone wolf tendency, where you do things on your own, you don't ask for support. Maybe you don't let people know that you're having a hard time in life. And there's a sense of pride sometimes about figuring it out on your own. And that's really what being a man is all about, that you've got to do it yourself. You got to do everything yourself. And then you'll be, sort of validated by that. And I think the truth is that anyone who's listening to this, if you think about people in your life that are deeply successful, none of them have really done it on their own. There might be unique characteristics and qualities that they have, and they might be hardworking or compassionate or whatever it is that got them to the place that they're in, but they really had a guide, they had a mentor, they had someone to lean on when they were thinking about giving up. They had someone put positive ideas in their mind or empowered ideas in their mind that sort of took hold. And in our groups, we aim to help men move forward. I think our founder sometimes phrases it as, men flailing forward in the general direction of betterment. And, I think that that's a good summary kind of what our groups are about.
And what is, say, one specific example or even day that you remember that you saw some breakthrough with men that you were working with in relation to opening up and sharing more about what's going on in their lives and sharing about their emotions?
Well, there are many, many examples of that. I think I'll answer that in a general way. The groups have a confidentiality agreement, so specific stories and things can stay in circle. But what really happens in groups is guys open up, and you might think that maybe you've been struggling with something specific, and maybe you've been doubting yourself, or you have low self-esteem, or a particular aspect of your life isn't working, or you feel like you're in conflict a lot with your romantic partner, or you're really frustrated at work and you feel like maybe everyone else has it figured out. And when you come into a group, into a circle, and men start opening up and talking about themselves, you realize that, we're all in a way sort of dealing with some of the same things, and that you're not actually alone and isolated. Many people share your experience. And it's through the sharing, it's through the speaking about it, that men also learn sort of a range of vulnerability, and that it's okay to talk about certain things. Doesn't make you less of a man or weak or anything like that. It's actually quite a brave, courageous thing to come into a circle and to speak about yourself openly. It's not something that, traditionally, I don't think men are socialized to do.
So in a way, what you have created with the Samurai Brotherhood is a support group that allows its members to share what's going on with their life, share their challenges, and have not only the coaches such as you help with checking in or or bring motivation and even lectures or education, but you've got all the rest of the men there giving a shoulder to the rest.
Yeah.
How do you think that has helped men become better and change for the better?
Well, I'll answer that to speaking about something you just said, Maya, which is that there are some coaches in our organization, and there are some therapists and counselors in our organization, and those people aren't necessarily running groups. And so to be a group leader in our organization is you don't need a specific qualification or a degree or anything like that. It's really about being committed to the group and being willing to lead and to show up in that capacity to really hold the container and the agreements of the container, such as showing up on time, staying in communication, some of the basic things that we have for our members. And not everybody wants to be a leader. And what the organization creates is an opportunity for men to lead their own groups and to step into that if they choose. So it's a great opportunity. It certainly is a great opportunity for me, because when I joined, I wasn't sure that I would be interested in or capable of leading my own circle at some point. And then eventually the group became so popular that we had to do that. I essentially led the second squad, as we call them, second group of guys, because the first circle got so big. And so that was group number 2, squad number 2. And now we've got 42 squads, and something's happening, something's working, such that the guys are just getting something from this, that the growth has not been driven by paid marketing, paid advertising. It's really been word of mouth and people saying, hey, this is a valuable experience. I recommend this, man. You should come check it out. And often women sometimes letting guys know that the organization exists. So on a bit of a tangent there, Maya, I just want to come back to your question. Could you repeat that for me?
Yeah, no, you were partially answering it about how men improve their lives through this group, and basically you're mentioning of them having the opportunity to become leaders in those circles, and taking that leadership role can be quite life-changing, because when you're a leader, even if it's in a small group, you're taking responsibility to see how the energy of that in the room is moving forward and is not staying stagnant in a bad place, and that when somebody is sharing something that is very deep and that they might have not shared with many other people, that it's respected and supported and taken care of.
Yeah, I think one of the other ways that the group works is accountability. So being accountable to a goal, being accountable to a behavior, being accountable to some practical thing in your life that you're practicing or improving or striving for, and that you might share that with a group and be committed to a certain practice for a period of time. So that sense of accountability is big. And one of the other ways that men improve is they learn to listen for the truth in other people. They learn to listen for the truth in what other people are saying. They learn to listen for untruths or BS or things they feel like are off the mark. And they also learn how to talk about themselves in a way that's honest, authentic, and true, because other people will call them out. So there's a sense of direct communication and being held to the fire in a certain way that you don't always get, and I would say rarely get, in other rooms, boardroom tables, the family dinner table, other spaces in community where people don't always tell you what they think. And the direct feedback is, in a respectful way, is really, really useful. Men are willing to listen and apply the feedback that they get and make changes in their life such that are appropriate for them and to help them move in the direction they want to go.
In the men you've seen go through this training, have you seen them be able to, as you say in one of the code of ethics that you have as the Samurai Brotherhood, be in truth, to be able to be truthful also in their speech, but also in their life, more than they were before they did this process?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the groups themselves, I would probably not refer to them as a training because it's a men's group. And a men's group is really about spending time with men and the bonding that takes place there, and the belonging that takes place there, and the sharing that takes place there. Um, we do online weekends, and we do larger workshops, so to speak. And you might maybe think of those as a training. Um, but the reason I don't use the word training is there's no real commitment to stay in the group. So men are free to come into the community and try it for a month. We ask everyone try it for 4 weeks, and then they can decide whether they want to stay. We don't operate on contracts, and so in that way, it's really a space for men. And we find that most guys that join stay and get a lot out of it, and they love it. Um, but I just want to kind of build off what you were saying there. So the
Definitely. And
question might
just
go ahead.
one note about what you just mentioned with training. Totally understand where you're coming from, and what I meant is that they are training in a way to speak in truth, and
Mm.
everything that embodies this work that you're doing with men is a training on how to be a better person. Um, so yeah, definitely. But
And
continue.
so, right. And so I think, off of that, it is a practice, right? Everything in life is a practice. So if you're committed
Yes.
to the gym, or you're committed to reading an hour a day, or you're committed to speaking positively about yourself, these are practices and lifelong practices. And you practice one thing until it's sort of a competency for you, and then maybe you practice something else. And I think that men do learn to practice being authentic and communicating directly, and learning how to do that too, learning how to listen, learning how to say their piece. But there's also a sense of embodiment with these things. You feel a little bit more confident in your body through the experience of sitting with other guys. There's things that men get from each other by sitting in circle that they just don't get elsewhere. It's not really available in other containers. And there's a sense of maybe empowerment about that. And so, with that kind of energy, when that gets integrated, and maybe a guy's feeling a little bit more clear about what he wants and what's important to him, that also allows, makes space for the communication to happen. If someone's unclear, they're feeling really foggy, they're not feeling confident, they don't accept maybe parts of themselves, uh, might have more fear about being totally honest, for fear of being rejected or misunderstood, or something along those lines.
Do you have a person in mind that you remember distinctly, who has went through the process of doing these sessions, these men groups with the Samurai Brotherhood, and who, in doing so, has really quite changed the way he lived his life, perhaps with his family, his career? Is there a certain experience that you remember about this person that you can share with us?
Mm. Well, I could say this about many guys. There's definitely a few in particular, and including myself, that have a bit more confidence about themselves, more belief in themselves, such that they've been through the process. And I think some guys you notice might come into the circle and not make a lot of eye contact, or not speak very clearly, or might not share much about themselves at all, and might be quiet. And over time, there's a sense of opening up, and a little bit more freedom in terms of their expression and their capacity to talk about what they're feeling or thinking, or what their desires are for life, and looking people in the eye, and showing up in a more uh, just a sort of vibrant way. And so you see that over time as people get results and they make progress in their life. And I think progress is one of the things that makes people happy, gives them a sense of fulfillment, that they're moving towards the feeling that they want, or the place that they want to be in their life. Progress, they're getting something done.
Have you had situations I don't know if often or not, where the men cry when they share their experiences or what they're going through?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, a lot of men have that experience in group and sometimes on our longer weekends because we can go deeper. And Phil runs a big warrior weekend training usually every spring, and he's a masterful facilitator. So men do have breakthroughs there, or are showing emotion, and that will happen time to time in group, right? If a guy's really honest about what's going on with him, life ebbs and flows, and there's a sense of oscillation. Sometimes things are really good, and then an event happens that you weren't expecting, and you're devastated. So that is a part of the experience sometimes.
What is a role model that you have in going through your life, and that you perhaps share about their story with others?
Well, Phil, for me, the founder of Samurai Brotherhood, is a role model in many ways. Uh, my father is a role model in many ways, and I think, for my father, he grew up very poor, and he didn't have a father in his life because of the circumstances. And um, he really came from a situation that was very difficult and didn't have a lot of resources, and was able to make it work somehow. There's a sort of the principle of alchemy, the myth about turning lead into gold, making something out of nothing. And I think that that's a really, really amazing quality that people find in life, is that they're able to make something happen by getting support, or by just actually within their own body feel a sense of resourcefulness. They're going to make it happen, that they're going to move forward, that they're going to find a way out of the situation that they're in. And so I look up to my father in that way, that he was able to create a business and financial abundance and create a family despite the challenging circumstances that he grew up in. And as I say that, I'm sure many, many people, see that in their family or in themselves, that they were able to overcome a big challenge in a certain way. So those are two men for sure that have impacted me. And yeah.
What is something about Phil that inspires you?
Well, Phil, ever since I met him, I noticed this really powerful presence about him, and his capacity to go anywhere that you want to go. So as a client, going to see him, or as a man sitting in his group, he's just extremely well-read and has a lot of experience as a facilitator. He's been working with individuals and couples for 30 years. And so that to me was extremely valuable, that I could bring any of my thoughts to him, that he could hold space in that way, and I felt comfortable to do so. But also, he's a highly creative man. He's written a number of books. I think he just published number 7, and has had a lot of interesting experiences in his life. He's traveled, he's had adventures, he's done unique things. And I think when I met him, I was also aspiring for some of that myself, really to explore more and try new things and see the world. So he had a deep presence, a sense of worldliness, highly educated and insightful, very insightful. He has an ability to really cut right into the heart of the matter. And
Nick, this is a more personal question to you.
yeah.
Would it be true, and correct me if I'm wrong, to say that perhaps Phil, the founder of the Samurai Brotherhood, was to you a worldly inspiration for intellectual achievement, and your father, on the other hand, was to you a role model of a different kind, where it was more of a going through emotional struggles and coming out the other side as a different man. Would you say that is true?
Well, it sounds true. And I think that, I know Phil in a certain way, I have a certain relationship with him. That's very different from the father, my biological father.
Definitely. There's a
Yeah.
different
So,
emotional relationship. On the other hand, there are different types of fathers, and there could be people who have experiences with their fathers that are not, um, they're not personal. And I have a feeling from how you described when you were talking about your father that it was, with his experiences of not growing up with a father, whereas you grew up with yours, and what he taught you with how he um, overcame all of the adversity, that it helped you. It was a solid example of somebody going through a very, very emotionally draining situation, and then be able to build a family and a business and everything that got with that.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I think one thing that's common between the two men is that they're both encouraging. I've always felt an endless sense of support and encouragement from my father. And I think that's really helped me move through some of the challenges that I've moved through. And yeah, Phil for me would be more of a spiritual mentor, and going to do some of the deeper inner work. Sitting in some of the co-ed circles he's run with men and women, and having him as a facilitator, mentor in men's work. It's been awesome. My father is a businessman, and he hasn't dedicated his life to the inner realm. In many ways, it's more outwardly different type of practice.
Would you say that basically the inner work that you did and discovered with Phil has healed some of the traumas that you had, or if you had traumas or hard experiences that you had?
Yeah. Well, I think the work with Phil, one of the things for sure is having a better understanding of myself, right? Getting to know myself. And that's one of the principles also of the Samurai Brotherhood, is to do inner work to get a better understanding of yourself, and things that beliefs you've taken on through your development. So I think my working with Phil and other trainings have really helped me understand my parents better, understand family systems, and understand my place in it, and to check my own projections or judgments of other people, about who they are, or how they ought to be, or what I think they should be, or all the things that happen. And part of that is also in the spiritual path. People try to go that way or want to go that way. You can develop a spiritual ego that, I'm better than you because I read books, or I'm better than you because I know myself, or I'm better than you because I'm spiritual, right? Uh, that's one of the pitfalls of doing self work.
Do you have any female role models?
Female role models, well, my mother in many ways. Um, Female role models. It's
Uh,
interesting. Yeah, my mother's probably the first one that comes to mind.
How was she a role model?
Well, she's a role model in terms of, she kind of came from similar circumstances as my father. Small village actually in Portugal. And interestingly enough, her father wasn't around for many years because he was working, as even the modern times many men do. They're at the office, they're at work. And she came out of that circumstances, came as an immigrant to Canada, not knowing the language, having to integrate into a new community, and somehow, some way, was able to integrate through that and learn the language, and deal with some of the very challenging cultural differences between where she grew up in Portugal and how it was in Vancouver, Canada, and the expectations of her parents, and those religious expectations. And, she came to understand that me and my brother are individuals with our own beliefs, and giving us permission to have our own thoughts, and choose our own path, kind of thing, which I think can be a difficult thing to do. depending on your background or where you come from or what you believe about how someone should be. I think for many years, my mom wanted me to be, in marketing and just have a kind of a 9-to-5 office job, which is safer sometimes in the parent's mind. They just want the child to be okay and for everything to be fine. So, in that way, my mom's a role model, and also very supportive and encouraging and kind of just always there for us. So I think that as a teenager, I wouldn't really have that same perspective. As a younger man, I didn't really have that perspective. I think sometimes the conflicts that you have with parents and the negative memories you have with your parents can define who they are in your mind. And you can make them out to be villains who are trying to control you or tell you what to do. And I think many people might see themselves in that experience. But my work with Phil has definitely helped shift and transform that and create a lot more insight into certain dynamics and just the way that I see the world.
Do you feel that there are things that men can learn from women?
Oh, absolutely. Men can learn as much from women as they can from men, and we, in our community in Vancouver, there is a conscious relationship training. It's a co-ed training that Phil founded, where men and women do work together. So equally important. But I think that the men's work, the circles of men and men meeting together, it's becoming more popular nowadays. There's a bit of a movement, so to speak, and this whole thing really started in the 60s and 70s. But I think the men's circles are more rare. And I think sometimes men wonder what they're going to get from a men's circle, because they think, well, there's no women there, so I'm not going to meet a woman. And there's no TV, and we're not going to have a drink, and there's no games we're playing. So what are we going to do? And I think that is a foreign experience actually to many guys. So the answer is yes. Men have plenty to learn from women, and vice versa. And having a men's group or a men's organization is not making a statement about that. It's simply just about men doing work together and having a space for guys to speak their mind and talk with one another. The space changes when you bring women into it. When women sit with men, and so guys need a space. Men need a space to air their frustrations or their grievances, whether it's with the opposite sex or the same sex or with their girlfriend or with their mother or whatever it is. Just a space to talk about that with the guys. Free of observation from the feminine or from the woman.
There could be a danger and this is not related to men's group in particular, but in any group where you come and you share your, like you were saying, grievances that you may have or issues, that some people come with a type of mindset of just unloading what I have on my mind, and I don't want to hear any suggestions, just hear me out. Do you have that experience with some men, and if you do, what do you do with this kind of approach?
Well, absolutely. People sometimes might be venting about their day in circle, but the whole culture of the Brotherhood is fostering a sense of forward gear, forward momentum. So hey, I hear you got a problem in your life, and maybe I'm sorry to hear that. Man, that sounds really challenging. Okay, all right, fine. Would you want any feedback on that? Would you like the guys to give any feedback? And sometimes guys say no. I just wanted to say that out loud. But if it continues, right? If a man shows up continually, the pattern is that he's complaining or taking a victim position in his life. The culture of the groups is, so okay, we hear you. Now, what are you going to do about that? Right? How are you going to move your life forward in some way so that you don't continue experiencing the thing you don't want, right? And that's there is a culture of feedback, right? Of wanting to support one another, and that's the idea of mastermind groups, is that you put a bunch of people in a room sharing and talking with one another. And each person has expertise. One person might be 60 years old, one might be 25 years old, and one might have more life experience or more career experience. And there's a shared benefit from one individual speaking and sharing. And even if you don't say anything in the exchange between two other people, you get something from it. You can learn from it. You can take something away from it, maybe an interesting question or an insight. And so these groups are not, wound worshiping, where people come in and just complain and complain and complain about their life. The spirit of the brotherhood is about moving forward and improving your circumstances, right? If you feel like there's a challenge or a problem in your life, then let's figure that out. Let's do something about it.
What do you do when you feel stressed or under pressure or even in depression? Sometimes we have those days.
Stressed under pressure. Well, I think there's important for myself to have resources, and some of those are internal resources. So I might have a process that I run through, or a meditation that I do, or I might exercise, or lay in the sun. Whatever it is for me, I feel in the moment that's going to feel good for me. Just to sort of acknowledge and honor what I need, and then also there's external resources, and so calling a friend. Working with one of my coaches or one of my mentors, talking with my partner about something, going to men's group, right? So my life is set up in a way such that I just have these supports. I have these activities planned. So every week I have at least one meeting with either men or another meeting, which is there's women involved. So I've set up my life such that I've got support, such that I'm checking with other people. I'm a space holder in a way for my clients, one-on-one clients that I work with. And so what about me? Who holds space for me? So it's important that I have that. Through the Samurai Brotherhood, definitely, I think, learn more about vulnerability and learn the art and practice of reaching out for support when you're having a hard day or having a hard time, and to act on that, and to not to ruminate or dwell or go too far into isolation, to pull away from people or the world. So one of the things that I've learned is not to hide when I feel like I'm not doing well. It's actually better for me to talk about that and sort of clear my mind with the appropriate person in my life. I think people fear being seen when they're not doing well, when they're feeling depressed. They feel like they don't want anyone to know, right? Because maybe there's an expectation that they should just be thriving, or they should be doing really well in their life. And the challenge for the depressed person, if they go further into isolation and withdraw, is they don't get a sounding board. They don't get someone to maybe check their cognitive dissonance. And the best thing a depressed person could do would really be to do anything in a positive way, to get off the couch, to go for a walk, to call a friend, to go for a swim, or just to go do something, go to the arcade or go to a movie, or just move some energy in your life, move your body. And obviously, when I say do anything, I mean in a healthy, constructive way, in a supportive way. Oftentimes people do things that are destructive, right? That are not helping them, and self-soothing techniques or tactics. And it could just be they smoke a joint every time they're stressed, or they go to the alcohol every time they're stressed, which sometimes further perpetuates everything that's already happening, and or makes things worse.
Definitely. Do you think there is a question that I should be asking you?
No, I can't think of one. I think you've asked some great questions about the Brotherhood, and I think why men's work sometimes is a question that people have. Why are men meeting? Like, what's the need, or what's the problem? Like, why do you need to meet just with men? I think we've touched on that.
Do you think there's a question that people should be asking themselves?
Well, since this conversation is about Samurai Brotherhood and about men's work, to the men listening, I think if there's a fear coming up or, there's a curiosity in an individual about this and they say, oh man, there could be something here. And then maybe there's a fear coming up that it won't work or, it's going to be not going to be what they think it's going to be. Really just have an open mind about that. So if you're feeling challenged by life and you want change and you want to try something different and maybe you want to expand your community or you want to learn more from other guys, or you want to get to know other guys, you want them to get to know you, give it a try and see what's there. That would be the one thing that I would just encourage men to do, is to have a sense of willingness and open-mindedness about it, and to make a judgment for yourself based on your experience, rather than based on what I say or what the website says.
Do you see men who are usually coming to you are coming from a certain background, and usually is it that they've passed through like a horrible situation and that is the only time that they seek help?
Well, some of the men that join our organization are dissatisfied with a particular area of their life, right? So sometimes we have millionaires join. They're dissatisfied with a particular area of their life. They're not fulfilled in a particular area of their life. Sometimes we have guys join that are going through a rough breakup, or opposite of a millionaire, they're in debt and they don't like their job and they're not sure how they're ever going to change their circumstance. And sometimes we have men that are really just looking for some friendship and getting to know men in their community. So people join for various reasons, and I think that's great because it brings a sense of diversity. In terms of our members, we've got guys between 20 and 70 years old. So we've got a really broad demographic in that way, different cultural backgrounds, different religious beliefs. So really it's an organization for men. We don't have some set criteria of who you ought to be, or some guys think that they've got to be able to bench press a certain amount, or they've got to be fit enough, or they've got to have a six-pack to join, or something like that. And that's just not the case.
Nick, my last question for you is, how do you feel women can support men more?
How can women support men more? Well, I think, encouraging them to go to men's group and making space and time for that, and allowing it, and knowing that there's hundreds of men, thousands of men around the world that are having a positive experience in these groups. And that positive experience is rippling out into the boardroom, into the bedroom, into the family, into the community. That's a wonderful thing. So I think sometimes, there is a suspicion sometimes in culture about men meeting in secret rooms behind closed doors. And what are they talking about? And what's going on there? And there are many examples in history such that maybe we should be sometimes concerned about that. But that there also are a lot of really, really great meetings happening for guys, and there's a private space for them, and it's a positive space, and it's an empowered space, and there's no sinister agenda. And so that'd be one way I think that women can support men. And I realize that I am a guy, so I have my own biases, and I'm aware that men have done lots of destructive things. That men have done lots of damage in certain ways, but to be a man is not toxic, and to be masculine is not toxic. There are toxic aspects of people, the toxic aspects of the world, no matter how you identify or where you're from. And I look forward to continuing this work and trying to make a difference in small ways, even if it's one person at a time or one group at a time. And I hope the work continues for many years. Our organization's been very supported by women. We get a lot of men coming to the community, or people being sent directly to me because their partner, they're in a heteronormative sense, their woman maybe saw the group on Instagram or heard about it, and referred her guy there. So I appreciate that for anyone that's listening. Appreciate you referring people to the organization and having having men's backs, so to speak. Yeah.
Nick, thank you so much for joining Changemakers Without Borders. It was great to have you.
Thank you, Mai. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Mai, one other thing I'll mention is that we have an online Samurai Brotherhood weekend at the end of October. And the event is going to take place October 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And it's going to be 4 2-hour sessions over 3 days. Really, really affordable event. It's $150 for the entire weekend. I'm going to be there with a few other facilitators from our community. And really, we're going to be doing small breakout groups and focus themes and conversation for this weekend. We'll be moving a bit, doing some breath work and exercises. And that is a really, really great way for men to get value from our community without joining it, but also to get a sense of what we're really all about and even do some personal work on that weekend. So highly recommend checking it out. And if anyone has questions, they can just go to our website at samuraibrotherhood.com.
Thank you for listening to Changemakers Without Borders. I'm your host and producer, Mai Cooper, where I bring inspirational and educational content from leaders currently in society making differences as we speak, as well as about history's leaders and what we can learn from both their mistakes and their triumphs. I hope you join the growing community of Changemakers. Write to my email, changemakerswithoutborders@gmail.com, for any comments or questions, or even if you'd like to be on the show, and subscribe for more content. Thank you very much.